The plan for this morning, we're going to talk about individual service funds and our research project for the first 40 minutes or so, and you'll hear from a number of different people as we explain what an individual service fund is, what they can achieve, and we'll tell you a bit about the equalled research project that we've led at the University of Sheffield, and we're going to tell you about our findings, about the 5 things we've found that really make a difference to the success of an individual service fund. And then we'll go on and tell you about the free resources that we've developed to support people who want to know more about individual service funds or ISFs, including how you can get hold of those resources. And then we're going to open it up to a panel discussion, and the people whose names I gave you at the beginning are going to be on that panel. So please feel free to type your questions in the chat as we go along. If there's somebody in particular you want to direct a question to, then by all means do. Otherwise, we will have somebody chair. Alice is going to chair that panel discussion, and she'll direct the question to the person who she thinks will best be able to answer it. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Michael and Jimmy, who are going to tell you a little bit about their ISFs and how they're working well for them. So over to you. Thanks, Michael and Jimmy.
Hello.
So, do you want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Jimmy and I'm from Hartlepool.
I'm Michael, I'm from Hartlepool and the sport Hartlepool football ground.
I'm just going to lean in. So my name's Sarah, I'm an assistant locality manager for Dimensions. I support Michael and Jimmy. They're on ISF contracts and we're just going to go through some information today, aren't we? Yep. Yeah. So I'll skip this. So we've got my support money. Do you want to talk about this bit? So it's about the fact that we did some work with Leanne, didn't we? And around ISFs.
Yes.
And then Jimmy, do you want to tell us a bit about how we got to the my support money?
Well, it was when we started the ISF, we couldn't get our head around the ISCF. It was dead long, so we changed it so it was easy to understand, and so we changed the name.
When you first started talking about it, we didn't understand what ISF meant, did we? No. And it was really difficult to remember, so we changed it. Yep. So it's called My Support Money when we work with it now.
Yeah.
And it's about, what do we utilise that money for?
What we do, we put it in our pots, and then we pay for the staff, we pay for our activities, and whatever's left goes back into the pot.
Yep, so it's anything that's required to meet your need, isn't it? Yeah. So shall we talk about the 5 best things about having money? Yeah? In a pot. So we've got number 1 on our list was planning together sessions, wasn't it?
Yes.
So do you want to talk about that, Jimmy?
Right, because we have our planner for the week from Monday to Monday. And we plan what we're going to do each day. And each day. So what we do is we pay for our activities and then other stuff and find out what's good and what's bad, and then we can change it and do other stuff.
That's right. So if things aren't working or if you're not enjoying something, then we get to come back together and then we get to adapt it, don't we? Yes. So that we're doing something different that's going to meet your need at the end of the day. Yeah. So do you want to explain to the group what we did with your My Support Money pot? Because there was a gap in our planner on a Tuesday, wasn't there, when we weren't getting out and about?
So what we done, we paid for we looked for the football coach, and then we paid for the football coach, and we do it on Tuesday once a week for an hour.
Yep. Yeah. So what we did is we sat round a table, we decided what we needed to do from our support money to make sure that we were getting out and about, that we were seeing our friends. Yes. And then we had to go and find a coach, and we had to find a venue to hire, so that we could all get together, and then we used the My Support Money pot to pay for that, didn't we? Yes. Because there wasn't anything in the community, there wasn't anything out and about being offered, was there, to fill that space for us. Another thing that was on our 5 top things of using a My Support Money pot was using my pot of money for technology. So Michael, do you want to talk about when Jimmy first moved in?
Yeah. Well, Jimmy moved in the flats. I'm on the downstairs flat, Anthony's in the middle flat, and Jimmy's in the top floor flat. So we bought some walkie-talkies
Why did we buy walkie-talkies?
so I can wake Jimmy up every morning.
Yeah.
But he never used to answer it sometimes. So they've got Alexa now, so he can get up with his Alexa.
But
And we do come down with us every week as well.
why did we buy walkie-talkies then? What did it stop us needing to do?
Getting the extra pay for the staff for an extra hour.
Absolutely. So instead of paying for a member of staff to come
We
in
bought some
early
walkie-talkies.
to wake Jimmy up, because you're not a morning person, are you?
No.
We looked at what else we could put in place, and it was funded for out of that pot of money, wasn't
Yes.
it? And then that helps you.
I'm up early anyway, aren't I?
You're an early bird,
Yes.
and Jimmy's definitely not.
But I don't want to work at the hospice.
Yeah. So that then saved that bit of money
Extra now, yeah.
Yeah.
every day.
So that goes back into the pot.
It goes back into the pot, and then what can we use it for?
Activities and trips out.
Yep. Or if we need staffing elsewhere.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
events like when you go into your concerts.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. The third thing that people that you guys wrote on your top 5 list for My Support Money was pooling our money. So we already touched on it about the football session on a Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to explain what it means by pooling money?
What we do, we go, if we go out on a Saturday in the car, we share our hours, so we
Save
Yeah.
money
save
that way.
money
as
that
well.
way.
Save
Yeah.
money that way.
We don't need 2 members of staff, we just need 1.
Don't need 2 members of staff,
No.
so we're able
We
to
need
pool
to
our
drive
resources.
the car as well, don't we?
That's right. And likewise, on a Tuesday, with the football being expensive because we're hiring a venue,
Yeah.
what we don't want is that all to come out of one person's pot of money, does it?
We share.
That's right. So
Share it,
we
yeah.
share it across the people we support that attend. So the other thing that you touched on, Michael, was flexibility. So do you want to explain a bit more about Come Dine With Me?
Yeah. So what we do on a Monday, I do the first meal, and I do it for Jimmy and Anthony. And Anthony does on a Tuesday, I do it on a Wednesday, Anthony does on a Thursday, and Jimmy does on a Friday.
Yeah.
To take away on a Saturday, and then we go to Macapolo's on a Sunday.
So when we talk about Come Dine With Me, we have a member of staff that does what?
Our
Helps us each day,
each day
so we only need 1 member of staff.
staff.
Instead of
So we
2.
don't need 2 staff in at a
Exactly.
time.
And when we were eating separately,
We're going through too much.
well, it wasn't very healthy either, was it?
No.
Our cooking skills weren't getting any better.
No, that's true.
So when we have a bit more focused support.
So we all on a Sunday, we all get together with the staff and write it on a menu, so we know what teas we are doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we have some focused support with one person,
Then,
and then that's then made for our friends, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yep. So we're all getting a balanced meal.
yeah, yeah.
Lovely. And then number 5 on our top 5 things about My Support Money was the 24/7 grid, wasn't it? What I've just realised is we haven't got our presentation working, have we? So the 24/7 grid, do you want to talk about what that enabled us to see, Jimmy?
What it is, it's all your activities, all your staff, and then you pay, and you know what's left over, and it goes straight back into the pot.
Yep. But with the 24/7 grid, it's very visual, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can pay each day.
Yeah, so we can see exactly what we're spending our money on.
But we are working on trying to get virtual wallets, but we're just still working on that at the moment.
Yeah, and
that's
that's
true.
part of
Still in
our kind of
progress.
planning together session.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to
Yeah.
about that.
What we're using, but what we need to get better at as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So from the 24/7 grid, what we're able to see is the support worker cost, whether that's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, 1-to-3, the cost for things like hiring venues, hiring coaches, if it's a cost of a personal trainer, like you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then it shows us what we've got left in our pot, whether we've overspent or whether we've been able to keep some back and
Yeah.
keep it in our pot for something in future.
Something else, yeah.
Yeah. So overall, do you think then that your support money has been a good thing or a bad thing?
Good
thing.
Yeah.
Because we get so much money, but we make it so we can do like different try and be creative with it. We get the same amount of money, but we try and get as much as possible out of that pot of money.
Yep, you're spot on there.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're not just getting a set of hours in and a set of hours out, are we? We're able to use that pot of money a bit more flexible, so that you get exactly what you need from
What
it.
we need, for all of us,
Overall, Michael, good thing or a bad thing?
Good.
Good. I think that's pretty much the end of our.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. It's really
Welcome.
lovely to hear how well things sound like they're working, and to hear those examples of how you're using your individual service fund. So I'm going to explain a little bit now about what an individual service fund is, because you've shown us really beautifully how they're a great way of getting the most from your money. So ISFs are a way that you can receive all or part of your personal budget. And a personal budget is the money that the local authority sets aside for your care. So a social worker will do an assessment to see how much care you need, and then they'll decide how much money is needed to pay for that. That's your personal budget, and you can choose how your personal budget is managed. Some people like to have that money themselves, and they or their family or their friends choose how to use that money, help them choose how to use that money to get the support that they need. And that's called a direct payment. That's one way of getting your personal budget. A direct payment gives you choice, it gives you control over how you use your money and what support you use it to buy. The problem with that is that you do have to manage the money for yourself, or someone has to manage it on your behalf, and you have to employ the people who support you. And many people find that too much work, or their families find it too much work. Another alternative way of getting a personal budget is to have a council managed budget. With those, you don't actually get to see the money yourself. Instead, the council use it to pay for your support. The disadvantage of that is that often you don't have quite as much choice or control over how you use that money to buy the support that you want and need. Individual service funds sit between those two. So with an individual service fund, a service provider holds all or part of your personal budget, and they look after that money. And they also work with you, as Sarah described and Michael and Jimmy described. They work with you to find out how you want your support to be provided. So you decide for yourself, you direct your own support without the hassle, the burden of having to find that the different support activities and manage your own money. So ISFs have some great advantages because they allow providers and support workers, who are often the people who you might know best, to support you to use the budget in really smart ways to get the most from your money, as Michael and Jimmy have just shown us. So just to briefly sum up the advantages of an ISF, ISFs offer flexible support. So if you want to do different things each week and make small changes to your support, you can do. You don't have to wait around to be reassessed or to get permission. If it helps you meet your eligible outcomes, you can adapt what you're doing, and you can do it quickly. ISFs let you choose what works best for you. So you can choose what support you get and who gives you that support. So the idea is not that the ISF support provider who holds the ISF delivers all your support, but that they will help you choose how you get your support. And as Michael and Jimmy have said, that means you being creative and getting support in different ways, like using walkie-talkies rather than having an extra hour of a person to wake you up in the morning. That's a brilliant example of how you can decide what's going to work best for you. And ISFs allow you to share or save your support hours. So as Michael and Jimmy were talking about their pot, with an ISF you can save up any money that you don't spend for something that you want to do the next week. It might be a special event, it might be a trip, and you can put your support together with somebody else to do something together. So that ISFs allow that flexibility. So ISFs, it's not about cutting costs, it's about spending really well. So you've got the same personal budget, but it's using it in smart ways to get better support. So you might not be surprised to hear that the use of ISFs is growing. So in 2019, only about 100 adults with learning disabilities were using ISFs, whereas now there's about 3,500 people across England who are using ISFs to pay for their support. But sometimes people have different understandings of what ISFs do, and sometimes people call something an ISF, but it isn't really delivering all those advantages for people. So we needed more evidence that we could take to local authorities to say, look, this is how ISFs should work if they're going to deliver better support for people with learning disabilities. So that's what we set out to provide. So we set up a research team called the Equalled Research Project, and that was looking at equal access to flexible support planning for people with learning disabilities using individual service funds to do that. And we were given some money, and we've used it to research individual service fund over the last 2.5 years. The project's been co-produced. We've worked with an advisory network of 24 different people, including people with learning disabilities, and we've talked to just under 140 people from over 15 local authorities across England, including commissioners, social workers, other local authority staff, social care provider organisations, as well as adults with learning disabilities and their families and other independent advocates. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about in this first bit of the webinar. So I'm going to hand over now to Jodie, and she's going to tell you a little bit about how she's been involved in our research. So over to you now, Jodie.
Thank you, Liz. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, so at the beginning, Liz met with us guys at Speakup to talk about individual service funds, and asked if we would like to produce the project together with them. So we thought the project was important because we wanted to help more people to have more control over their support and to live happy, healthy lives, like Liz said earlier. We decided that I would be a co-applicant for the project and that Liz would meet with me and a group of people from Speakup regularly. And Liz arranged to pay Speakup for my time on the project. So Speakup were involved in setting up the project in 3 key ways. So 2 of us from Speakup interview people for the researcher role. This was a difficult decision as the different candidates did give a very strong performance. One fun thing we got to do was design the project logo, as you can see in the middle of the slide there, and to help decide the final design. It was a huge team effort and special to do this with a group of self-advocates, both women with disabilities and autism. We told the researchers top tips for how to make their meetings inclusive. These became equals, terms of reference, that they use for all meetings, including the advisory group and the project management meetings. This included things like speak slowly, use relevant pictures, don't use jargon words, and only discuss one main thing per meeting. Liz and Alice meet us before each project management meeting to talk about the project. During these meetings, we've helped with lots of different parts of the project. I'll give you one example. We helped Liz and Alice to decide the words to use to ask interview questions for adults with a learning disability. Liz and Alice had some ideas, but they were quite wordy. So in the interviews, they wanted to ask about flexibility, but we told them it would be better if they called this changing your mind. And Speakup's also helped record the individual service fund video, which is part of the toolkit. We're going to show you a short clip from it now, where I tell you about how people can spend their individual service fund money. So, what are your rights and how can you spend your money? You have the option to get support from an ISF provider. You can even pool your budget with others to get more support together. For example, to pay for the support for holidays or day trips. You can spend your money in any way that is legal and meets your eligible outcomes and needs under the CARE Act. Your provider must keep good records about how your money is being spent. You should be able to see this if you are interested. One person with an ISF who loves gardening used their money to pay for an allotment. Another person has used their ISF to pay for therapeutic drumming lessons. ISFs can be used to pay for assistive technology like Alexa or Ring doorbells. ISFs are being used to pay for training or courses, including British Sign Language, to support communication and independence. So,
Brilliant, thank you, and thanks, Jodie. I think we're going to hear from Claire now, just talking about how we made the project as accessible throughout. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks very much, and thanks, Jodie. So that video clip that you saw just then, that's part of accessible resources that you can download from the website. A lot of the rest of the resources are in Easy Read, and they're all in plain English, or as plain as we could make them. So after Speakup were enrolled on the project as our kind of co-production partners, I was brought on because I'm a freelance full-time Easy Read designer, and basically we made every single bit of communication around the project into Easy Read. So all the notes of all our meetings, our terms of reference, participant information sheets, meeting notes, the e-newsletters, the toolkits, like literally everything. Accessible communication was completely embedded into the whole project, and we couldn't have done that without Speakup, because there's no kind of standard for Easy Read. So we took our instructions from Speakup, who are really experienced in making Easy Read and reviewing Easy Read, and they kind of set the standard, and then we made all of our information according to those guidelines. So yeah, so it was a brilliant thing to be part of, because it was true co-production. So yeah, thank you to Speakup for that. And part of our work was running workshops with Speaking Up groups of people with learning disabilities, and this was an output from one of our workshops. So we talked about making choices, and we had a scenario where somebody was kind of going about their day and making choices about what they wanted to do, and it was how we talked with that group about the freedom to make decisions and to be listened to and to have some control over our day. And then we approached a friend in Spain with the stories, and she illustrated it for us. So this is just an example. There were more pictures than this, but this is just an example of what she did. So this was a great way to recap with the group when we went back for a second session, to remind everybody what we talked about and to make that story into a visual story as well. So that's just an example of what we've done.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire. That's fantastic. So I'm going to talk about what we've learned about what makes an ISF work well for people now, and what a good ISF should look like. There isn't a single thing that makes ISFs work well. It's not just about one person or one sort of part of the system doing something right. But through our work, we've identified 5 kind of key influences that really make a difference to the success of ISFs when they come together. And these are values, relationships, flexibility, transparency, and approach to risk. And these these are not tick boxes, as I'm sure you can see. It's not about sort of having them or not having them. These are things that affect how well your ISF will work for you. And we've developed the toolkits to help you work out whether the ISF you're being offered or the ISF you are offering or set up is working well. So I'm going to very quickly walk through these 5 things, and then Alice is going to introduce the resources that we've developed to support you to think about whether an ISF is likely to work well for you. So the first thing is values. The values of the people offering and managing an ISF make a huge difference. Do people see individual service funds as a way to improve the quality of support? If they do, then you should be able to say that you're getting to choose what a good life looks like for you, and that you're at the centre of your support plan and the most important person in that plan. So how people think about ISFs influence what's possible on the ground. It's about doing what's right for the person with learning disabilities. It's not about trying to cut costs, and that is key to the success of an ISF. ISFs work best when you get to plan your support with people that you know and trust and who know you well, so that you can suggest ideas, activities, support options that somebody might like, because you know what someone likes and what they don't like. They know, you know what they can do and what you might need support. They might need support to do. So it's about feeling that you're being listened to when you say what you want to do, and that you're in control of the things that happen. And if you don't want to do that, then there are people who can help you do that. People who know you and who know how you like to communicate what you want. Flexibility is really important. So we've already talked about a really big part of the potential of ISFs is about being able to plan support about the person's Care Act eligible outcomes. And I know there's some discussion about this in the chat already. So with an ISF, it doesn't have to be that you're paying for somebody to come every day or however many times a week at a set time to deliver a set task. There's more flexibility than that. And we've already heard some really good stories about how people have used their ISF to get support in different ways, to do everyday things in their communities. So it's not just using learning disability services if that's something that you don't want to do. It's about being at the allotment. It's about going out for tea. It's about going and doing football coaching out in the community. And it can vary. So if you want to do something differently, or maybe if your needs go up and down, you can make changes to accommodate that without needing to be reassessed, as long as your support provider can find ways to do that within your budget. So flexibility is one of the really key things about ISFs. They work well when they allow that flexibility. So transparency means being able to see what's going on, and that's something that's really important. So thank you, Jimmy, Michael and Sarah, for talking about your 24/7 grid, which is a really good way of making things transparent, so you can see what the money has been spent on. It's really important to help you make decisions about what you want to do, to be able to see, well, how much money have I got? How am I using my money? How much money will I have left? So transparency is really important. It means you get the information you need about the things that you might want to choose to do in a way that you can understand and that you can use to decide if you want to try something different or not. And finally, risk is something that we found was important. ISFs are about living your best life, and for some people that means trying different things and having new experiences, having more opportunities to learn and to find new things that you enjoy. When you try different things, there's always a chance you might not enjoy them. So this is where we have to think about risk. Does your ISF help you to do things, even if there is a slight risk that you might not like it or it might not work well for you? If you want to try something, you need to understand that that's something that might happen, rather than just somebody else deciding for you that because there is a small risk involved, that it's not something that you can do. So all of these 5 things, values, relationships, flexibility, transparency, and approach to risk, affect how well an ISF is likely to work for somebody. And I'm now just going to hand over to Alice, who's going to talk about the toolkits that we've developed to help you to find out whether an ISF is likely to be the right choice for you and how to make sure it works well for you, or if you're involved in setting up or developing an ISF offer or delivering ISFs, how our resources might help you. Thank you, Alice.
No worries, thank you very much. So yeah, as we've been speaking about, we co-produce these 2 toolkits, and when we talk about co-production, we mean that we made these toolkits with the people who are going to use them. So this included adults with a learning disability, carers, support providers, social workers, and other people that work at local authorities. So we met with these people and talked about what would help them either with delivering an ISF or what adults with a learning disability would find helpful for them in order to make a decision about whether an ISF was the right thing for them. So we made one toolkit that was kind of more aimed towards local authorities and ISF providers to support them in offering ISFs. And then we made a second one that was more aimed towards people with a learning disability and their support network to help them decide whether they wanted an ISF and how to get the most from it. And within these 2 toolkits, there are different resources across them. And we co-produced these different resources through our conversations with people, really about what they were finding difficult or challenging within delivering or kind of wanting to have an ISF and what might help make them better. So in our workshops, people told us that actually not everyone working in local authorities or in providers really knew what a true ISF was or how they could be used. And we're also told that there weren't always ways of showing or knowing whether an ISF had made a good change for the people that were using them. So in our first toolkit, we addressed this by making resources that showed how to and to support local authorities and providers in evaluating or knowing how well the ISFs were being used. So we have an evaluation framework that gives examples or ways in which you might measure the success of an ISF. So it has kind of success indicators in it. And then we also have a progress pathway resource, which is kind of for a provider and a person who has an ISF to work together on, that helps show kind of their progress or kind of how life has changed since they've had an ISF. And it's a way of measuring the kind of quality and monitoring that, but also kind of building almost a case study of that journey. And then in our toolkit that we made for adults with a learning disability, we have different resources that explain what an ISF is and what you should expect if you have one. And we made kind of different resources that do this because of the different ways that people told us that they like to get information. So as we've already seen a clip of, we made a video about what an ISF is, and we worked with people with a learning disability who told us what needed to go in it, what the order should be, and helped us write the script. And you've already seen that Jodie is the star of that show and she did a brilliant job on it. People also told us that it's really helpful to have information written down as well as kind of being able to hear it. So we have easy read fact sheets that sit alongside the video that help kind of explain that information further. We worked with a group of self-advocates to help change an existing list of I statements about ISF. So I statements are things that you can say when your ISF is working well. And you might have noticed that in Liz's part of the presentation, we kind of had some of those I statements within that when she was talking about the good ingredients. So things like, I am the most important person when we plan my support. So these statements help people to know what they should expect within their support if they have an ISF. So it supports them or their kind of friends or families to know really their rights and to see if things aren't working well. We had a conversation with people with a learning disability about what would be helpful for them when they're talking with a social worker or a support provider about the possibility of having an ISF. And actually they told us that you don't always know what you don't know, essentially. So it was really helpful to have prompts or questions that they might ask to get more information about an ISF. So we made a resource of questions in partnership with these different groups of self-advocates. So it included questions like, who decides how the money is spent? After we made these resources, we worked with 3 local authorities who were kind of piloting or planning their ISF pilot for adults with a learning disability to user test them. So this meant those local authorities and providers use these resources with people with a learning disability. After a few months of them kind of being in use, we had conversations with the people using it, so people with a learning disability, local authority staff and providers, about what they thought of the resources. So kind of overwhelmingly, they said that they really liked the resources and that they were really helpful. People in local authorities and providers told us that those resources that we'd made kind of with people with a learning disability and with them in mind were actually really helpful for staff as well as a kind of training guide. So for example, the video had been used for training for social workers as just a way to kind of get everyone on that level playing field of knowledge. We had feedback from people with learning disabilities about some of the language or some of the pictures that we use. So we were able to kind of build on that and make changes to the resources from that feedback and improve them. So the really good and exciting news, if you haven't already seen or know, is that these resources are now all freely available to download. We've got the QR code there. There's also been a link that's gone in the chat to our website, but I can put that in again. So yeah, please kind of take a look at them, download them, and hopefully they'll be helpful kind of with your ISF journey. So that kind of brings us to the end of the kind of presentation part of this webinar. And we're now going to be moving into the discussion panel. So hopefully people have been popping questions in the chat box, but please continue to do so and feel free to kind of direct them to a specific member on our panel. I'll just kind of flash this up to give you a bit of a reminder of who's going to be joining us. We're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. There might be some that are left over, and if so, we might try and kind of answer these after the webinar and circulate them with attendees. And our panel will also kind of try and address any questions in the chat as we're going through as well. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and stop spotlighting myself. So I'm just going to pop into the chat. Also, if you want to, I'll kind of be going through the chat to look at the questions, but if you want to raise a hand, feel free to do that as well. Oh, Claire said, Simon, do you just want to kind of briefly, as you weren't able to do the introduction just before we dive into the Q&A, do you want to just, I guess, kind of do what would have been the introduction to the session at this point?
I don't really know how to do that, Alice, but it's really nice that you've given Citizen Network and the SDS Network the chance to host this event. So I'm really just saying welcome to everybody. Individual service funds are at least 29 years old, so I don't know. It goes back a long way for me personally, and you know, the language issue is a big one. So my support money, of course, makes more sense. And the reason why you use jargon is sometimes to try and take a simple but powerful idea and make it sound more important. I don't think that's really worked with individual service funds. I think it probably wasn't the right language, but it was the language that I chose 30 years ago when I was thinking about these things. So it's really lovely, especially as a Sheffielder, to have the University of Sheffield leading the research and thinking around this, and it's great that you've come to us. So I just really welcome this opportunity and thank everybody for doing this. And if you're interested in staying involved, there is a whole global self-directed support network which you can join, which we host, where these ideas are talked about and shared. So I'd just encourage people, if you're not a member of the SDS network, to join. It's free to join. And I know, back to the discussion.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Simon, and sorry for putting you on the spot in the middle there. But obviously great to hear from you. So I'm going to kick off the panel with, it's a question, or more of a kind of statement, but I'm going to raise it as a question to the panel from Zoe, who I think has not as kind of since left, but it is an interesting point, I guess, about delivering ISFs kind of in this challenging context that we have in social care at the minute. So she was saying that they work for an organisation in Scotland, and Scotland kind of had the first ISFs, and they're basically finding it increasingly difficult with local authorities in these kind of challenging times. I think that we definitely saw in our research the kind of difficulties that it meant in terms of flexibility. So local authorities were less likely to kind of want things to be flexible. So they were saying we're having to constantly support people to have a voice and challenge the information response that they're getting, kind of even though it's really enshrined in law within Scotland. So I just wondered whether one of our panel members who's kind of got on the ground experience working in local authorities or as a provider at this time would kind of like to speak to how you're kind of managing delivering successful ISFs while there is this kind of pressure in local authorities. Is that a hand from Chris, or is that a covering the?
It was me just adjusting my camera actually, but I can say that is a common theme across, I would say, England as well. But I think, like, for me, just from my experience of working with local authorities around England, is the messaging that I'm really clear on is that actually individual service funds don't cost any more than commission services. So there isn't really any risk to trying them out. And that's the thing that I struggle with the most, actually. And obviously my background was in commissioning, and we set up obviously individual service funds about 10 years ago now, the council I was working at the time. And we just worked out the budget on what we were going to spend anyway with that care provider. So actually, anything that could be done creatively within that budget from our perspective was fine, because it was just within that person's personal budget. And that's a messaging that I still believe. And I think there's also some evidence emerging, but not at scale yet, that actually people are more efficient and make better use of their funds and actually make their money either go further or sometimes return money back to councils in a way that never happens with commission services. So I'm a big advocate for it, really, from that perspective, really.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Liz, do you want to come in from the equal perspective?
Yeah, just to echo a little bit what Chris said about using money efficiently. So about getting more for the same money. ISFs offer real potential, and you could hear that through the example that Jimmy and Michael gave. You know, you buy your walkie-talkies and you've got them then, and you've saved on a weekly or a daily, it must be, if it's waking you up. Was it Jimmy who was waking up? If it's every day, you know, imagine how much money you're going to save over the long term. And it's also nice that you get to talk to one another each morning rather than having somebody coming into your house. So it's I think there's the thing to stress is that the potential that ISFs have to improve support using the same amount of money. So it's not about more money, it's about using that money smartly. It's also about this ability to quickly to sort of manage fluctuations in need. So rather than sort of having to go for more money when there's escalating need or needs are increasing, you can actually plan in advance for that. If you know that there's maybe something coming up that's going to be difficult and you might need more support, you can kind of manage that budget to make sure that there's enough money available to manage that within reason. Doesn't always work, but actually it is about using the money smartly. And finally, I think again, Jimmy and Michael talked about how and Sarah talked about how they cook together, so that they're learning how to cook. So again, you can see that over the long term, that's going to reduce their reliance on people to support them in in what they do. So there is an element that ISFs allow people to make progress towards greater independence. So again, they have the potential to actually reduce the amount of money in some cases. That's not the primary aim, that's not what you're looking to do, but it's not inconceivable, it's not impossible that that is something that may happen for some people. So I just wanted to sort of highlight those points, on top of the fact that you know what Chris was saying, this isn't about them costing more.
Great, and I can see a hand from Rebecca as well.
I think it links back to the point that Liz was making about those top 5 elements of an ISF being about relationships, and that's the relationship between the local authority and the provider as well. So where that question was talking about having to challenge the local authority or to feed back to the local authority the voice of the adult in that situation, I think that's about the development of that positive relationship together, showing how those outcomes can be successful. It's about developing trust between local authorities and providers to deliver that. And I know that can feel difficult for providers and equally for local authorities as they start to deliver ISFs. But in order to get those positive outcomes, the relationship has to, you know, sometimes be tested, but also to find those ways to work together. So I think from a provider perspective, it's brilliant to read really that you're going to keep the voice of the adult central, that you're going to, you know, raise those points, and it's for a local authority to listen to that and be receptive to that. And I think you know, I totally agree that one of the top elements is going to be that relationship. So I think I appreciate during challenging financial situations it probably feels more difficult, but if we stay true to kind of supporting both sides, I think that's where we see those successful outcomes.
That's great, thank you. There's a couple of questions in the chat that are talking about a kind of management fees. So I think potentially coming from the perspective of the local authorities, where, you know, providers are mentioning that they want funding to kind of deal with the admin time, and kind of the question about kind of some are asking for up to 20% to manage this. So I wondered if I could go, oh, Ian, is that a hand about? Oh no. I wonder if I could go to Clare Gleeson on this. This is definitely a question that we've had in previous webinars as well, about kind of what management fees are and kind of what people are charging and how that's different across the board.
As a provider, we work in 3 local authorities, and there's been a different approach in each local authority. So we're really interested in kind of like learning more about management fees and kind of, because they vary from one local authority to another, and I think they vary across providers, like was mentioned in the chat. So we've started to collate some data around the time and resources involved in planning and delivering ISFs, from that kind of like from the initial conversations with people and families and social workers right through to going live with the ISF, and then the ongoing management of the budget. And I guess for us, you know, the really good support planning should be part of, you know, if you're providing some of that support to the person, really good support planning should be happening anyway. And I guess it's looking at, well, what are the extra kind of things that are involved when managing an ISF? So at KeyRing, we use the virtual wallet platform, which is really open and transparent, and the person can kind of look on the dashboard and see where the budget is up to. But I think there's lots of factors as well that impact on kind of like the time and effort involved. So I think, you know, the size of the person's ISF budget, the frequency or kind of complexity of changes that the person wants to make to their ISF budget. So there's one young man in one local authority who is making changes on a weekly basis, and then there's somebody else who is perhaps not making a change for 6 months. So I think that has an impact on it. I think the level of direct support provided by the ISF organisation needs to be considered, because if he's providing kind of up to 80% of the support, then, you know, then I think then a lot of the work should be kind of be part of that. But in other areas, we've then been working with somebody where we provide, say, 25% of the support or even none of the support, and so then we're acting as a broker role. So what should be the fee for that? So I think it's a really interesting question. It's a really interesting piece of work. We're going to do some work with Chris Watson and pull together the information that we're collating and put it into some kind of report, a paper that'll hopefully be available later this year, and will perhaps help local authorities to have those conversations with providers and vice versa.
That's great, thank you. I think there was a hand raised by Gary. I'm sorry, while I've got the spotlight up, I can't see. Yeah, Gary, did you want to come in with a question or a comment on this? Oh, your mic's not unmuted, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, no, hello. No, thanks very much for that. Just to let you know, by the way, I can't access the chat, so it sounds like there's some really interesting questions and answers in the chat, but that's turned off for me.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, no, I'm actually represented at CVS, Council for Voluntary Services. Have you got any examples of CVSs helping facilitate ISFs? And even sometimes acting as the ISF, I was wondering.
So that's because community voluntary services.
Yes, that's right. Because the link to that is that not only is it a difficult step for the individuals to take to decide that, but it's also a difficult step for the providers. And if there are no providers, and in my area there's 0 ISFs, everybody's wary of taking that first step. So me and my organisation are willing to take that step. I just wonder if anybody's been on that journey before.
Right. I think Chris has got an answer to this.
Yeah, hi Gary. No, that's brilliant that you raised this actually. So we did some work in Essex, and I don't think there's anyone from Essex on this call, unfortunately, but Essex Council, they have a VCS organisation called Basildon, Ballyrickey and Wickford CVS, and they basically became budget holders for some individuals that lived in Basildon. And there was a sort of annual brokerage fee paid to the CVS, and they basically just did the support planning with the person, kept an eye on their budget, basically kept an eye on that person, and became that sort of link point back to them. And these were people that probably had lots of low-level contacts with social work or social services, and then the brokerage sort of service offer, I guess, gave them a more central, a more local community-based contact point within there. So I'd be really excited to explore that. I think that's a massive potential area for ISFs that isn't really scaled up in the way it could do, I think. So.
Right. I'm going to go to Ian now, who's also had his hand up. Hi, Ian. Oh, you're not unmuted, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, Chris jumping up and down like me, I think that would be a really, it would be a brokerage model. There's no reason why anybody couldn't provide a brokerage model. And I've often thought, providers are very good at delivering ISFs when they're ready and able to deliver it. But one of the things that's constantly come up in my experience on this is that there's a limited knowledge of the local and wider market. So a range of providers will have different knowledge about different parts of the market, where the CVS generally will have an overarching knowledge of what's available in the local area. They won't know everything, but I find that when I talk to the CVS groups, they seem to have this really good understanding of where the voluntary services are, where employment services are, and other ranges of support that are not necessarily linked to the specialist provision that's being delivered, and there seems to be a disconnect there. I don't know what other Chris, for example, your experience of that would be the same, I would imagine. And I just think that if CVS got on board and acted as a broker in these models, then they would be able to reach out to the far and wide market to get some great outcomes. And don't forget, it's not always about the money. And we talked about the charges providers provide. I don't think it's been properly bottomed out yet, and there's still some work to do with that. So I'm good to see you're doing some projects on that, Claire. And different people will charge different prices. And again, it depends what you're delivering. If you're delivering the bulk of the services, why would you be charging a high admin fee? Because you're effectively double charging somebody. So that wouldn't be something to do. But you have to make, you're a business. You have to make money and pay your staff. But the brokerage model across the piece would be really, really excellent way forward. And it'd be interesting, Chris, if we could get a voluntary sector forum together just to talk about that with providers and local authorities, see how that goes. But very interested to develop something further with anybody looking at that area. Thanks for raising it. Who raised it?
Gary.
Hi, Gary. Yeah, thanks for raising it, Gary.
That's great. Thank you. going to come to Alex Goff. So we've had a question. I'm just going to kind of pull two questions together almost, Alex, if that's okay. So we've had one around kind of managing support for people with fluctuating needs and examples for that, but also someone talking about providers talking about the challenges that they have in being able to be flexible with managing staff rotas and things like that. So I wondered if you could maybe, it might end up being two answers, but speak to those experiences.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and cover off both. I think if we start looking at the fluctuating needs, support needs, I think ISFs perfectly complement supporting individuals that have that sometimes increased level of needs dependent on if they were suffering, for example, for some poor mental health, the ability to upscale the support, but then help them manage through that period of unsettled time, but then also then make sure that you can right size the support again back down to what they actually need. So what a traditional commission service would essentially do is look at the worst case scenario and then say, look, this is what you need to deliver, and then that support is maintained even in times when it's not required or it could be used more creatively. Then you're over supporting that person, and then that doesn't feed into the opportunity for them to develop and grow their own independence. So it's about the organisation that's supporting and the ISF holder working with that person to realise when they need to take a step back and allow that person to take a step forward. Also, we need to throw in the local authority perspective on all of this as well. So when we have an ISF budget that's been created and it's being used flexibly, we're working on those outcomes, we're achieving those outcomes, there needs to be a core understanding throughout the process on the local authority side of things. That includes like the direct payments ISF finance team need to know what an ISF is, and understanding that there may be some surplus left in that ISF budget, and that is for when we need to really react quickly to stop this person reaching crisis point. And if we can do that really well, then over time it means that their well-being is met, but also again it's within the budget. It means that we're not bothering practitioners. We've got Rebecca on the call, her team, her social workers will be inundated with quite minute things of changes in somebody's support plan that takes a lot of time and gets wrapped up in things and slows the process down. All the while it's impacting on the individual. So it's that trust and it's building those strong relationships. What was the second question, Alice? I'll try and make this one quick.
It was about how providers find it challenging to manage that flexibility that should be inherent within ISFs, considering kind of, I guess, staff rotas and things like that.
It shouldn't be a challenge. I think first and foremost, organisations need to have the right values, vision and mission. They need to be fully embracing self-directed support pathways and understanding that we are here to enable the individual to flourish. If we're able to do our job and we do it really, really well, the whole model is that eventually we'll be doing ourselves out of a job with that person. The demand for services is huge. So if we do a great job and that individual is more independent, there are so many other people that we can help. That really does help in terms of workforce culture, staff retention, staff satisfaction in what they're doing. When they can see somebody thriving, that's really rewarding. It then bridges that fear of change within staff and, oh, what's going to happen to my hours now that this person doesn't need me? Well, you should celebrate what you've done and then focus on helping somebody else on their journey. And that's when you get that natural progression. You get staff that want to stay, that feel valued, that they see them making a difference. And it's really wonderful. And it's really so simple. but you need to have those values embedded in everything that you do in an organization. So when we're talking about large organizations and culture shifting and change management, that can be huge. Start somewhere. That's what I say. Start somewhere, see that it's working from there. KeyRing, wonderful example of how they've embraced individual service funds, and that, you know, Darwin, we're small, we're down in Dorset, but KeyRing have that, and Dimensions actually. Lots of larger organisations are embracing it. Start small and then you can grow from there.
That's great, thank you. I could see a lot of nodding heads there. We have a question from Jamie, who's talking about using ICBs and the LDA pathway, and basically trying to get people to commission creative support, specifically focused around people who have labels of challenging behaviour or behaviours that concern. So in introducing and creating ISFs, could anybody share any experiences that they've had concerning promoting ISFs and influencing and supporting appetite for them with those with perceived risks? Does anybody want to speak on that? Chris?
Yeah, hi Jamie. I think we did some work in Wiltshire a couple of years ago with some people that were just stuck in inpatient units for way longer than they should have been, years longer. It was, you know, scandal really. And the commissioners, fair play to them, the ICB commissioners said, look, we want you to make this happen basically. And we said individual service funds is the way we can do this, and because we need to potentially rent some properties, we might need to get a caravan in someone's garden. So we built this kind of budget that was just completely bespoke to that person. We were, you know, employing a sister. We didn't do hourly rates. We just did how much do we need to pay people to get good support for this person to make it actually sustainable, so they don't end up going back in hospital. So we ended up creating a sort of team of PAs that was employed by a provider who was very willing to create a whole new workforce structure to make that happen. So it's kind of amazing. But all of that came back to the commissioners being brave and recognizing that there was an unacceptable situation and having trust in us to do that work with them. And we got some people out of hospital. There's 3 people we moved out of hospital who've been stuck in there for 8 years plus. And one of the ladies was actually in Winterbourne View and actually had been, you know, supposedly had been discharged after that and had ended up back in systems. And so the commissioners actually just really stepped up for that. And I think that's the big part of this message. I think it really is, commissioners have this within their gift, you know, to do some of this stuff, but it does take a certain level of bravery.
Yeah, that's great. And I think kind of what you're saying and what Alex has been saying really ties into what we found in the project about this idea of values being so key and important, that actually it takes maybe commissioners that have got that drive, got those values to be working with providers that equally have the right values to work in that way. So yeah, it's absolutely around this ethos. I wanted to ask a bit of a broader question to all. Oh, Ian, you've got a hand up, sorry. I'll let you come in there.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say it's an interesting example, that, Chris. I've not heard you tell me that one before. But, I think it sort of rolls forward to modern days from there. And yes, bravery is quite an interesting word to use. I mean, it's when you're I've had some interesting discussions about how can you spend an ISF, what can we spend it on? Depending who you're talking to, local authority commissioners are quite restricted sometimes in their thinking about, oh my God, you could never spend it on a caravan in the garden. Why would you have that? Absolutely no way. But it's actually when you start unraveling these things and looking about positive risk management and what we should be doing for individuals, and letting people try things out, see what works, what doesn't work, is where you're actually getting the true value out of the ISF. And the challenge is to get commissioners and lawyers and your procurement teams in the local authority, as well as social workers, to understand that less rigid way of spending the money. And if you can crack that, and it brings you into Alex's world, where you're actually achieving outcomes and you can possibly reduce the input, not necessarily the activities, but the input, get the outcomes, you get a positive staff team attitudes, and you can bring other people in. And for a provider, if you can do that, you're getting a self-sustaining income generation. And you're not getting this thing where, if you improve people's lives, then often you'll see the personal budget being reduced because they don't need it anymore. Well, if that happens and you've got a staff team to fund, then you're in a funny old position, aren't you? But if you've got this positive attitude where you're getting people moved on in life, creating independence, perhaps down an employment pathway, reducing that need and bringing other people in, you get, not for want of a better word, a churn, but you also get a wider access to the community and looking at how people are developing those outcomes. And I think it's a much more positive thing for staff as well, and moving forward. So yeah, I fully agree with all of that. And bravery, you've really got to be brave. Some of you commissioners out there, if there's any commissioners in here, think about it. Don't be so challenging about why would I spend money on that. It's not about that. It's what outcome can you achieve with that money, and if it doesn't work, you'll soon find out, and then do something else with the providers. But don't be so sort of restrictive in these things. And on that point, Chris has worked with everybody to produce some kind of guidance on what you can spend, and I think that's something to develop the conversation, because it comes up a lot. Can I spend it on this? Can I spend it on that? Well, let's be brave. Good word, Chris. Thank you.
That's brilliant. I'm aware that we've got kind of 5 minutes. I'm aware that we've got kind of 5 minutes left. So I guess I just kind of wanted to bring this discussion together with a final kind of future facing question about for the panel about what your hopes are for kind of the personalisation agenda and ISF really over the next 30 years. So kind of what are we hoping for the future in terms of this? Would anybody like to kind of give us a summarising statement around that? I can, yeah. Oh, there's multiple people. Rebecca, I'll go to you.
So my thoughts are that, national expansion of ISF, so that there is a true offer in every local authority across the country, that it becomes the preferred choice over a managed service, and the way that everyone kind of starts as opposed to the more traditional methods. And we stop thinking about it like that. It just becomes the thing that delivers the best support outcomes for adults, range of adults. I know people have been putting questions and comments in about different types of situations for people. So obviously it can work for a range of different situations. So I think that just that change in the ethos and the culture where we're delivering personalisation through ISFs with great outcomes. I'd put something in the chat about moving away from that time and task and just really focus on outcomes. I'd like to see that just naturally delivered, as opposed to it feeling a bit clunky in local authorities as we're all trying to get to grips with it. So in 30 years' time, just as a natural thing that is occurring as a way of delivering support.
That's great. Thank you. What a brilliant answer to that question. We've got a couple of minutes left. So what I'm just going to say, I guess, kind of from us is please, before I just quickly pass on to Simon to kind of close the session, but please download the toolkits. We'll save the chat because I know that some people said they weren't able to access it, and there's been some answers and some questions in that and a bit of further discussion. So hopefully we can kind of share that with the attendees after this session. If there are any questions in that chat that I've missed, we can hopefully kind of add any answers to that as well and share with you following this session. But I will just pass to Simon to kind of round us off. But thank you from the Equal team for coming today. We've loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the whole team at Equal, at the university, at Speakup, to Chris, KeyRing, everybody who's contributed, really helpful. Yeah, what can we say? 30 years looking in the future, I'm looking 30 years back and wondering why we haven't made that progress, why this isn't the default option. I guess we're in a strange public policy space where talk of personalisation has been big for at least 15 years, but delivery has been, I'm going to say, poor for 15 years. It's not, we haven't made progress on a lot of these things. So we do have to ask ourselves some tough questions about why that is. I think one of the themes that's come out of this conversation, which certainly for me is important, is the relationship between not just people, providers and local authorities, but communities. And I think if communities start to understand that this is their money as well, that's often being wasted in residential care, that's taking people out. So this is what where most of the money is going at the moment is into residential care, private sector. It's even leaving the country into profits outside. It could be being spent in your community. It could be being spent in creating local jobs. It could be spent in helping people have really great lives, contributing to the community. I think even the language of outcomes it's right in a way, but some of this has just become a little bit too lost in the jargon of social services. What is the shape of social services in 30 years? Will they exist in 30 years? What needs to exist is people as citizens, contributing citizens in every part of the land. And we need to really, I think, shift our ambition. But this work is the first kind of real academic focused work on ISFs in 30 years. We've done independent research and there's been interesting things. So it's a really big deal. And I really hope this might be a turning point for the conversation around individual service funds. We may have to change the language at some point, my support money, or however we do it, but we really need to open the door to giving everybody choice and control. That can't be done through direct payments. That can only reach a percentage of people. If we're going to reach everybody, if everybody's going to have a decent life and be supported well at every stage of life, then this is the way forward. So thank you for everything you achieve. Citizen Network and the SDS Network will work closely with the team to make sure that all of these resources are readily available. And please do sign up. It's free to join Citizen Network and the SDS Network, and that will keep you in touch with all of the different things that we're learning, not just in England, but across the UK and across the world. There are a lot of people trying to move things forward. And if we put our collective effort to the task, I think we'll be much more successful. So thank you. We just press leave or
I'm not quite sure. Thank you everybody for joining, and thanks for your attention and some fantastic questions and engagement. Hope the resources will be of use to you, and please do keep in touch.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Liz. Bye bye.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
See you now.
Before you go, can I just ask? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can we have another one? Can we have another one of these?
Do you know, I was thinking that there's got to be some sort of consultancy group here, or national consultancy group that's worth.
Ian, we've got another session we're running with Learning Disability England on this topic in a couple of months, and the SDS Network runs events like this all the time. So just join the SDS Network. Yeah,
but I think a link, actually, someone could send me a link to one of those, Adrian, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't know how to do that exactly, but we're easy to Google, so you.
Yeah, I'll find you off the old invites. Yeah, okay, brilliant. It's really useful discussion, because honestly, I really feel that people aren't getting ISFs even now. And you say after many years, because you've got people dipping into it and dipping out, change of personnel, restructures going on everywhere, and it's not people's forefront, and it should be. And they should be, if I was in an interview now, if you didn't tell me how you're going to improve outcomes and individual development through the management of the funds, you wouldn't get the job. Simple as that. And you'd have to be telling me ISFs and DPs, so yeah. Very interesting. There was an interesting question we skipped over. I don't know if you've got time to hang around. Was what if you haven't got an ISF management system in your local authority? If your local authority is not providing ISFs, or not supporting them. One of the questions was on the sheet, and I think that's something we could explore at some point. I think there's an answer, and
yeah, in the project we spoke to one of the small supports who were really keen on ISFs but weren't able to. Their local authority kind of were closing the door on them, and so what they were doing was people that wanted an ISF with that provider were taking their personal budget as a direct payment. Yeah. And then basically giving their direct payment straight to the provider, and the provider was managing it as an ISF. So there is kind of that workaround in that sense. But obviously, I guess one of the things that we would encourage is just for kind of providers and for kind of people that are interested in it to keep keep trying to have those conversations with local authorities and to keep knocking on that door. But that is kind of one way in which we've seen it be managed in places where the local authority kind of are currently saying no.
And Croydon MenCap were doing exactly that.
Yeah.
They started the conversation around should Croydon be delivering ISFs, you know.
Right.
So, you know, little things like that can do it. And, you know, my thoughts on what 30 years going forward, it's about the offer. Is at that front line. What I find is that the social workers or the assessors, they're not fully conversant about it. The information leaflet. So it's that offer, you know, you should be talking very confidently about, well, if you had an ISF, this, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. If you had a DP, you couldn't do that, but you could do this and this and this. And if it was commissioned, this is what you do. And then mull that over in a lot more detail so people could inform choices. That would be the future going forward.
Yeah.
Hopefully that. I'm taking up everyone's time as usual.
No, that's fine, Ian. We'd love to hear from you.
We do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll obviously speak soon, but thank you for a brilliant session.